Good morning, everybody. We're delighted to be here. You might learn a little bit more about me personally, other than my terrible teenage daughter, than you might have wanted to know before we got here. But it's really all related to how I came to be at Big Sofa and why I'm so passionate about what we're doing. And we talk about it as a research revolution. And I've kind of been down this rodeo before, and it does feel like that. And Brian is going to talk about kind of how to put it into action and what you can actually do with it. So seeing is believing. I think there's been a lot of references to that already. So there's an old-fashioned telephone in this picture because I started my career in research as a telephone interviewer. So I won't tell you how long ago exactly that was, but I will say that it was when telephone interviewing was the dominant method of data collection. I was in college, and I needed a part-time job. They hired me on the spot because I'm articulate and I can read. I think I started my training that very night in New York City. And so I've been there, and I walked in thinking I needed a part-time job to help pay for college, and I ended up starting my career. I wasn't quite expecting that. So a few years ago, after some reorganization or another, our business leader, in an attempt to get the team together, this newly reorganized team together, she asked us to draw an animal that represented myself. I hated this exercise, and this is why. It's why because I am not an artist. I don't do art. I can't do it. But I drew a cat, and the point about the cat was that I associate cats with curiosity. For those of you who are actually cat people, you can look at this instead. Exactly. Thank you. And so the reason I picked the cat, again, was curiosity. I think I have an abundance, or perhaps even an overabundance of curiosity, if that's possible. I'm kind of an introvert, but I like to know about people, which is partly what makes this a great career for me. I'm always thinking about what are people thinking about, and I'm often the person heard saying, I just want to know. I'm like a lockbox. I don't tell, I don't gossip, I don't do any of that kind of stuff. I just want to know. I'm also the researcher, therefore, unfortunately, that was always saying to my clients. I spent 20 years at a supplier, which you'll hear about in a moment, and I was always the researcher saying, hey, did you think about this? Should we ask about this? Making an already long questionnaire even longer, because I couldn't help myself. Online research. So I spent 20 years at Harris Interactive, starting as a telephone interviewer and moving all the way up to be a client director. The point there is that I was there when we moved from telephone research to online research in the late 90s and early 2000s. And it seems so old hat now. It's so commonplace now. We do it day in and day out. But at the time, it really was a revolution. People didn't like it. It was no longer a probability sample, and people really got upset about that. And the work I did was in the public affairs space, so I understood the importance of the methodology. But people got really upset about that. It took years, and it took time, and it took lots of conversations for us to kind of gradually move people over to this way we do business now and way we do research now. I think what's relevant to me, there's two specific analogies that I think of in what we're doing here at Big Sofa. One is that it got us online, so now we took out the telephone interviewer, so online got us one step closer to the respondent and their life, right? We were able to find people that we would have not been able to reach using telephone interviewing because it was too expensive, because they were such a low incidence population. We were able to ask about topics that people might not have wanted to talk about before because there's lower social desirability in the online environment because there's just you and your computer, and you can answer as honestly as you want. So one specific example of that is that at the time, we found that people who are in the LGBTQ community were much more likely to say that in an online environment when there was nobody else there than they were over the phone. And so we were able to interview that population of people in a meaningful and reliable way. So it opened up new doors and new possibilities. And I kind of feel like video is doing the same thing now. So it's so exciting for me to be here at Big Sofa. My Legos. So a few weeks ago, I was at Qual 360 in Washington, D.C., hosted by our lovely hosts here today. They did a great job there, the same way they are here. In one of the sessions, the speakers asked us to pick out Legos from a bag, and I picked out two. I think I was being a rebel because everybody else seemed to only take one. And they asked us at the end of their presentation to construct the Legos in a way that represented why we were at the conference. So I had a smaller one and a bigger one. And for me, the bigger one represented kind of our existing traditional research methods, and the smaller one represented video, of course, because I'm a big sofa. And so I put the smaller one on top of the bigger one, and for me, it meant that we were expanding the possibilities of what we could do in our research to get deeper understanding, better connection to the people we're interviewing and the people we care about, to drive innovation and derive more meaning from our research. So have a look at this. That's the introduction. So for us, there's kind of 3 big points. We can get closer to real lives, real people, real behavior, and real meaning. So let's talk about each of those. So real people, right? I'm a quant girl. I know a lot about qual research, but I'm really a quant girl. I like my numbers. I like my statistics. I like my crosstabs. But I really like people also. And so through this journey, for me, it was the kind of realization all these years later that, with quant work, certainly by telephone, and I think it's true in online as well, we kind of drop into somebody's lives uninvited. Even if they're in a panel, we're still uninvited, right? We are unwanted. We're almost certainly coming at a time when they have other things that they'd rather do than our survey. And we're asking them to think about something that we've, first of all, given a lot of thought to, and secondly, they may never have thought about it, and we're asking them to think about it in our way. Not their way, but our way. We've written the questions. We've written the answers for them. We've tried to do our best, right? Because I know we're all thoughtful researchers, but still, we've done it our way, right? I do this with my kids, right? I'll ask them a question, and I'll say to them, this is a yes or no question. Those are the only answers you can give me. I don't want to hear anything else. This is a yes or no question, right? Or I'll ask them to rate things on a 10-point scale sometimes. It's good parenting. But that's a problem, right? We've dropped into this person's lives. We've kind of disrupted their schedule, and we're asking them to do something they may not have wanted to do. What if we got out of the way, right? And I think video allows us to get out of the way and have people tell us what's important to them in their own way, right? How many times have you asked questions like, how important are the following things? And you've got 5 things, and they're all kind of related. But maybe none of those things are really important to somebody, and they're rating them because you've asked them to, and they're rating them relative to each other because that's what the task is. But what if we let them tell us what's important to them? So it invites us into their lives with the video in a way that wasn't possible before. And I think that this is pretty awesome, because in a quant survey, you can add some video. You still have all your numbers. You're not losing your numbers, but now you've got this real life people explaining what's important to them, why the topic matters to them, and we can quantify it, you can export it, you can code it, you can do all of those fancy quant-like things, and you can incorporate the video throughout the research. Real behavior. So we're moving from a world, again, from where we're asking to where we're listening and observing. And for the qualitative folks among you, you do this all the time. But for the quant folks, like I said, we're asking very specific questions. So I was a telephone interviewer, and to this day, I will do almost any telephone interview that I happen to pick up the phone and get. And no matter how many questionnaires I've written, I will say that when I'm the respondent, right, I find that either the questions and or the answer categories don't quite capture my experience. So what if, again, I can tell you what I think about your topic? The other thing is in recall. Everybody kind of knows that recall is not such great data because people don't remember, and I can't even remember what I had for dinner last night, right? Let alone like 3 days ago what I ate for breakfast or why I had the snack I had. But we don't have to worry about recall anymore. We can ask about actual behavior. So in your typical attitudes and usage study, instead of saying, tell me about the last time you had a snack, right? Who were you with and where were you and what was the snack and what motivated the snack? It's just as easy to say, hey, record yourself the next time you're having a snack. And we can get all of that same data in the moment, actual data. Did I have 1 slice of toast for breakfast or 2? Nobody has to think about it or wonder about it because we know. And it's a beautiful thing. Real meaning. So I've got the crossword, the jigsaw puzzle kind of pieces, because I feel like, again, as a quant person who lived in a world where I only had my numbers, and I sat around a lot of times wondering, did the respondents really understand the question the way I meant it? Because the answers don't necessarily reflect. My favorite, though, is brand tracking. So brand favorability, brand appeal, whatever, and you track it year to year to year. And you kind of want to see movement really only in one direction, right? You only want to see it go up. But you don't want to see too much movement, because too much movement, you might not be able to explain it. And then if there's no movement, you can't explain that. And if it went down, well, then you really stared at the tabs for a long time trying to make up a reason why you could explain that to your client. I was always happy if I could come up with a theory as to why the data, but that was my theory, right? But now it could be the respondent's theory, that they could get an indicator of why those numbers were going in the direction they were going from actual people, not from me. So I feel like it completes the puzzle, right? So the idea that you can get video in your research completes the puzzle that you already have with your quant data, and again, bringing us better insights, more innovation, more action, more humanity into our data. So I'm going to stop now and turn it over to Brian.
Thank you. So as Michelle was saying, video provides a window into people's lives. We get one step closer to connecting with them. And the question is, okay, what do we do with this video? How do we use it? How do we make it work for us in our research? Really, technology helps us get there. Obviously, video is not new. Video in research is certainly not new. It was a key theme in yesterday's sessions as well. But the question is, again, how do we make it work for us? And technology allows us, and the Big Sofa platform and the technology we've built, it really allows you to bridge that gap between visual content and video, and the notion that video can be data. So with our technology and platform, you have the ability to search the content, to analyze it, a massive amount of video, a lot faster than you've been able to do before. So from a tagging perspective, you're able to identify key themes that are emerging from watching the videos from a vertical perspective or horizontally. So as researchers, one of the questions that we get asked a lot is, I'm a believer in video, I understand, I know it will help me, but how do I do it? How do I take that first step of incorporating video into my research, into my methodology, into my survey design? So we work with clients and help them focus on kind of 3 principles that we like to talk about. The first is video can be used to enhance current survey design. Video can be used to replace current designs. And you can also use video to create new insights that maybe have eluded us in the past, that you've always had that one question you can never actually get a true answer to. So for example, if we talk about enhancing survey design, that can be as simple as shifting away from your traditional typed open-end response to a video-based open response where you get a little bit more context. So in this example, Claire recently checked into a hotel, and she didn't really have a good experience. And she told us that when she said, she was irritated at the front desk. It's great, it's data, but it really doesn't tell us why.
Just checked in. Found it quite difficult. There weren't as many people as I'd have liked on reception, and when I finally got there, they didn't seem to be aware of my reservation. After a lot of faffing, they finally found it, but you'd think of a hotel of this quality that they'd have a list of guests. The system would be a lot easier, because I've started my trip basically irritated.
So what you capture there is just a little bit more information that kind of humanizes that data and tells a little bit of a story around it. The second way you can incorporate video into your research is by thinking how it can maybe replace some questions that you're asking in a survey. So if you're looking, say, of doing a product test where somebody's unboxing a package for the very first time, you may ask a series of questions to kind of get to that ultimate point. Rather than having a person tell us what that experience was like, you can have them show us what that experience was like.
60 controller. So this is the first time I've ever held a DualShock 4 in my hands, and I gotta say it's very comfortable. The redesign is very nice, and the triggers on this feel very premium.
And to Michelle's point earlier, one of the valuable aspects here is you're asking that individual to talk in a natural way, using their words how they want to describe it, rather than asking somebody to respond to a question how you perceive the world and how the words that your client necessarily wants to use. The third way that we like to work with clients with video is the idea about how do you create new insights that you haven't been able to capture before. So it's moving from that reported behavior to real behavior, moving from asking somebody to describe how they clean their house, maybe leaving out steps that are important to you, to being able to observe them actually going through their house. So you may see the challenges that they're having, the products that they're using, how they go about cleaning their house, the time it's taking to do certain steps, or you may see that they may decide to clean the house Homer Simpson way with the leaving.
All done.
So regardless of how somebody cleans the house, the differences that you can get through video that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get through quantitative research and asking them, how do you go about cleaning your house? A couple of points around technology versus human review. We believe technology really can help us and enable us to do our jobs better with platforms like we've developed, the work that KnowledgeHound is doing to help make research live beyond a single moment. That's where technology is really valuable. There's a fine line using technology, though, to understand human behavior. You really need people to understand people. So that's at Big Sofa. What we believe is we use technology to enable research, but we rely on human interaction and human review to understand the words that people are using and how they're going about with certain behaviors. One of the greatest aspects of working with video is the stories that you're able to tell, and that's been a theme through today's sessions. With the stories, it's moving away from a PowerPoint presentation. It's moving away from a researcher interpreting a consumer story and really allowing people to tell their own stories and their own experiences. So you're producing a deliverable with characters and emotion and storytelling that really captures the essence of what you're trying to do and really create some interaction with your clients. So the video that we're going to show was about a 90-second clip that a client asked us to produce. He just wanted a quick, fun, funky video that he can send around internally that just highlights a couple of key points from some research that we worked with them on.
When I'm stressed, I always reach for McVitie's Digestive Biscuit just because they're a bit nostalgic for me because I used to eat them when I lived at home with my grandparents a lot.
I work from home, so in the afternoon, or sometimes I'll just have this for lunch. I usually take out a few of these.
It's kind of bitter, but I really like it, and this bitterness is good for portion control as well.
we finish up, a couple of points that we want to leave you with. The first is, videos now, and video can be data. With technology, you can take qualitative aspects, observations, and you have ways to quantify that behavior using our Big Sofa platform and really leveraging video as part of your research. It allows for a deeper connection and greater authenticity with your deliverables, with your action, because again, you're relying on people to tell their own stories. And the storytelling is evolving. Everything that we've been talking about today is shifting away from PowerPoints and more engaging deliverables and using people to communicate in their own words. And what this allows for is really more informed innovation and activation towards future research, towards business decisions as well. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, guys. Any questions for the Big Sofa team? One here right at the front.
Hi there. I've worked with a lot of companies that are in the same realm, and we love doing video at the BBC also. One of the things that we struggle with is finding high-quality video in the responses. How do you work with your respondents to make sure, do you train them, or are there any innovations that you're aware of in that space? Because sometimes I put up video during presentation and people think, what's all that background noise, or like I can't see them, and so that's a pain point for us.
It's a really great question, and it's something we do experience. It's one of those aspects you can't really control, but what we do is when we work with our clients and we design a video task, we do put some points in there, how you hold the camera, the lighting, and it's really the best that you can do. And then you work with technology to try to clean up the video. It's kind of the nature of the beast a little bit. You can only do so much, but technology is also making that easier as cameras get better and they're able to address some of those quality issues as well.
I'll just add that I think it depends. So the high quality is important in a deliverable, but I think there are ways that the rawness of how people take the video themselves, it can also be powerful if you're communicating something back to a client or an internal stakeholder. Yeah.
Any other questions? There's one here at the front.
So to me, it's more of a comment. So if you have a video that's too dark, let's say, isn't that already data point? Because if somebody's having difficulty doing something, sometimes has nothing to do with the product or the person, but it might be in the environment. So it's just an observation that I have seen before when analyzing things.
That's a great point. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. One here from Jem, the award-winning Jem.
Thanks, Jem from Firefish. We've been working with you guys on and off for quite a while. I'm interested, as your business develops, are you seeing your future in selling directly to client organizations or to kind of research and insight agencies or something else?
It's a really great question. We work with a number of different clients, so end clients and agencies. What we found, it tends to be a very different need. So we'll work with agencies that want to do studies for research now. What we're also finding is larger corporations have a lot of historical video, maybe ethnographic studies that they want to be able to leverage, but they don't know what to do with it. How can you bring that research back to life? So we'll work with large corporations, and they'll import the video onto the platform. We can translate it, we can tag it, so it kind of brings that video back to life for them. And so that's where we tend to work with kind of end clients from that aspect of it.